woolly jumper and my Belfast tweed cap that I picked up at a market in Northern Ireland last Christmas, where the temperature was not dissimilar to that which we find in Johannesburg today. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to a show that features two fantastic winemakers celebrating some terrific wine out of Stellenbosch, and wine that in one case arrived with a particularly nice gift, and the other wine that leads into an awesome competition that could see you win wine for a year. How much wine is that actually? Not entirely sure, but we'll find out a little later on in the show when we head to Guardian Peak and meet Danielle le Roux, the winemaker there, and try some of the Merlot with which she is obsessed, and rightly so, particularly in the case of hers, and also some slightly older wine from Guardian Peak and get the story of the estate. And in just a second, we'll be heading to Hazendal and drinking some wine from another fantastic winemaker. But before we do that, I need to say a quick thank you. We had a wine auction on my social media channels over the course of last weekend, where a fabulous sum of 15,000 Rand was raised, thanks to the generosity of Ken Forrester and of Warwick, and all that money going to Reach for a Dream, every cent of it. That is such incredible work, particularly with terminally ill children, and so to be able to support the work that they do was a real treat, and they've been enormously kind. I just wanted to say thank them to you in public. They sent me these. How cool are those? New slippers for winter. That's what happens when Homer Simpson and a large fish have twins. There we go. Really, really cool. Julia, Chloe, Natalie, and the team at Reach for a Dream, thank you very, very much indeed. Most generous and most needed. The weather is getting even colder over the next while. There's talk of snow in Johannesburg over the weekend. The rain is, I believe, thundering down in the Cape. So the apocalypse is really upon us, if it wasn't already, thanks to Corona. So I mentioned that Danielle le Roux at Guardian Peak, one of our guests. She'll be with us in about 20 minutes or so. We kick off, though, with the winemaker at Hazendal, who together with Anya from the PR team and Michelle, one of the finest chefs in the country, sent up a really, really nice gift, which made it an obvious response to do some wine tasting. So hello, Clarise, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
And I've got to be honest, I'm slightly embarrassed because I am remembering an incident last year. I was hosting the Element House music sessions, and Michelle was along cooking. We were drinking some fantastic Hazendal wine that night, and I got introduced to you, and I was quite excited, trying to be really cool because here's this incredibly well-known winemaker. I said, yes, Clarise, lovely to see you. Absolutely love drinking your wines. And you looked at me and said, but I haven't made any yet, Dan. And I've been wearing that mark of shame ever since, because you, of course, had just started. I had to swallow my pride that night. Today, I get to swallow some of your fabulous, fabulous wine because it is now here. But it's been a really interesting last couple of years, both for you in person in terms of the latest stage of your winemaking journey, and also Hazendal with new owners with an incredible vision and such exciting plans for the estate.
Yes, it's been a major road and revamp, and new start to the brand, fresh start. So I started with Hazendal in 2016, and that's exactly when we started with the whole project of kind of redesigning and revamping the brand and the estate. So we've enormously built upon the offering that we currently have. We've got 2 restaurants at the moment headed by Chef Michelle, and also with the 3rd that they just opened this year, which is a braai venue, and functions. The cellar obviously has been completely revamped. But also we just started distilling, so you guys can look out for some vodka coming maybe in the summertime, which is quite exciting. And yeah, we've got a beautiful range of new wines, and a lovely tasting room to present it in. So hopefully post-COVID, we can welcome everyone to the farm again.
I should be large for great enthusiasm. The wine we're going to try in just a second. I love the fact you mentioned the distillery as well, though, because that's quite important to Hazendal, and particular to your owners, because that speaks a little to their heritage, doesn't it?
Yes. So Hazendal's owner is Russian, Dr. Mark Voloshin, and it initially actually started as just a tiny idea, and he basically wanted to do maybe 500 bottles a year, which has since kind of grown into purchasing a fantastic multi-column still. So it's something to really look at. It's in the restaurant actually overlooks the still, and it's just beautiful. It's got like a copper pot with these beautiful multi-columns just towering, and all the bubbler plates are copper. So, I mean, we can do absolutely anything with it. Vodka is just the starting point, and I think there'll be quite a bit of experimentation going on for the few years to come now.
It's always a measure of the nature of a place in terms of how they interact with people and their attention to detail. I think we've got a photo here. This is a hamper that arrived, a box that touched down in the Dan Really Likes Wine cellar at the weekend. That's a handcrafted wooden box. It looks fantastic. And then I opened it up to see what was inside. And inside of it found the 2 bottles of wine we'll be tasting today, your Chenin and your Pinot, and then a couple little touches of magic from Michelle, who's just quite simply one of South Africa's great chefs, who's now part of the Hazendal team. I have to say, though, and with apologies to Michelle, because I think Michelle is watching, I am not getting a chance to taste any of those, Clarise, because my wife took one look at them, hijacked the lot to take off to her office. And as she's a Greek lawyer, I just don't win any of these arguments. So as fantastic as it looked, and I'm very grateful for all of it, the box is beautiful, I'm afraid it's only the wine that I'm going to be able to sample from that particular gift.
Well, hopefully you're not left with the worst of it.
I think it'll be very, very far from the case because we've got 2 great bottles. Before we try the first of those, which is your Chenin Blanc, for people who aren't too familiar with the Clarise story, what was before Hazendal and what was it that took you into the world of wine?
I actually wanted to do nature conservation, but that didn't happen. My dad didn't think it would be a good idea back then. Job prospects and whatnot. So we actually went to Elsenburg, and I had a look around. We had a meeting, and my parents are fairly cultured in wine. They've always drunk wine, and we visited wine farms and things. So I decided that's probably the next best thing because I could still be outside as well. And I haven't looked back since. So started studying wine, did 2 years of travel after that whilst doing vintages. So I was in Australia, was in New Zealand, and I did California twice. So I did 3 harvests a year in 3 different countries. And then after that, I started off at Hazendal Wine in Paarl with my first assistant winemaker job. My first winemaker job was at Eagle Clay, very small cellar in Stellenbosch, and post that I came to Hazendal. So I've been here since 2016. Absolutely fabulous cellar to work with, and an amazing project that I got to be a part of. We replanted new vines, which will be bearing their first fruit next year. For the 2021 vintage, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I was in the vineyard just at the beginning of the week. Cover crops are coming on nicely, and so hopefully next year we'll have some of our own estate fruit going into the wines.
Ooh. There we go. I think we just lost you there for a second, but we've got you back, Clarise. So I think that's probably a good moment, a good sign to drink some wine. So let's have a crack at that first one. And I'm drawn to a comment made by my mate Steve Steinfeld, a Joburg foodie, on Instagram earlier this week, reminding people that we tend to think of winter being red wine time, open a big Bordeaux blend, bottle of Shiraz and cuddle up by the fire. But there's an awful lot about white wine that can do a similar job in winter. And your Chenin, having snuck a sip just before we started to get a quick preview, exactly that. There is so much to this wine that despite the fact that it's a freezing day, this is proving a wonderful antidote to the weather up here in Johannesburg.
Yeah, sure. so the Chenin Blanc is a 2017 vintage, so the wine has a bit of aging to it. It's got good legs though. The pH is just absolutely bearing the whole wine. The pH sits at like 3.3. So 2017 was an amazing vintage, especially for pHs in wines. So you really didn't have to do a lot in the cellar. And I mean, it just absolutely shines through in this wine, and it's aging beautifully. It's actually showing better every time I taste it. So if you, on the nose, will get a lot of like Turkish apricots, those soft ones that you kind of get at Woolies. You get a lot of lemony notes. There's some ginger, some nutmeg coming through, and on the palate, it's quite voluptuous. It's got a beautiful acid coming through, carrying all of that fruit and giving length to the palate. But it's also got a wonderful, like, waxy, creamy texture to it. And I think that's probably what makes it so appealing to drink in winter as well. The kind of creaminess that you get from it. So nice for summertime, but it's also great winter wine. The wine did see oak. We primarily use 500-liter French oak barrels. And with the Chenin Blanc, we actually use just a tad of Hungarian oak as well. So it does give you a bit of a kind of sweeter note to it. And you get a kind of a brioche flavor from the Hungarian oak as well, which makes it very appealing.
That creaminess is so distinctive, and it makes it so voluptuous on the palate. And I love it. And it's also this little whiff of ginger nuts, which I was a big fan of as a kid. I love the wine. I'm really interested in your choice of bottles. So you can see here, you've all seen the picture as well. Not just your Chenin here, but also the Pinot Noir as well. The kind of bottles we might expect for maybe a sort of a brandy or a dessert wine or a port, that chunky, rounder style of bottle. The aesthetic is very striking. We're certainly not going to miss them. Is it purely aesthetic, or is there something more to the choice of bottle?
Well, when we revamped the whole brand and all of the labels and the idea behind it, we really wanted it to be different. That was, I think, the briefs that came across from everyone. So we felt very strongly about that, and we felt that if we wanted to do that, we need to do it throughout. There needs to be a line drawn, and everything needs to be different. So the bottle that we've chosen is a bottle that we import from Italy, and I don't know of anyone else in South Africa that uses the same bottle. I import directly from the supplier, which I won't mention. But yeah, so I think it definitely does the job. It's striking. It looks totally different, and obviously with the fantastic label that we've done with all of the foiling behind it, it just looks really glamorous, and I think it really pops on a shelf. It looks totally different to anything else I've seen.
Yeah, it definitely works. You're not going to miss it in the lineup. And I think importantly, it looks really good on the outside, but it matches on the inside. Certainly for the Chenin. Let's see if the same applies to the second wine we have. And this one is your Hazendal Pinot Noir. I'm reminded of a tasting I did probably 2-3 years ago with Jan Boerland Coetzee. It was about this time of year, so it was quite cold in Johannesburg. And I remember that because Jan Boerland was wearing 2 pairs of shorts because it was particularly chilly. And he gave it a very impassioned, not defense, I don't think that's the right word, but an impassioned understanding for him as to why Pinot Noir was definitely a grape for Stellenbosch, because we've often thought we'll head up to the Hemelanada, they run the Pinot Noir world, there's some pretty good Pinot coming out of Elgin as well, but anywhere outside of those regions, we don't think as immediately as being a Pinot Noir area, but clearly in making the Pinot Noir, it's a grape that you believe you can do something special with in Stellenbosch.
Yes, absolutely. I had a funny encounter. We planted Pinot Noir on the farm, and we're actually busy doing another block. And so I had one of the contractors that it's a really big contractor, or he is a really big contractor in the industry. And we were driving through the vineyards the one day when he was supposed to give me a quote, and he's like, well, so what are you going to plant here? And I said, Pinot Noir. And he said, Stellenbosch? Crazy. And so I said, no, it's Stellenbosch, but you have to remember it's Botterade. So we basically, any time of the year, we're probably 2 to 3 degrees cooler than the rest of Stellenbosch. Plus, we've got a lot of influence from the ocean. So we get the cold from the Atlantic, and then also we get the influence from the False Bay as well. So yeah, I told them, listen, you don't have to believe me now. We'll go down to the cellar and I'll get you a bottle and you go taste it at home. And this guy was just not having it. Pinot Noir and Stellenbosch is not his thing. So he took home the bottle, and sure as Bob, the next day he phones me. He's like, he'd like to buy 6 bottles without even knowing the price.
Let me see if I'm in the mood to buy 6 bottles of Hazendal Pinot Noir. Already the colour's getting me. There's almost a sort of amberish hue to the red there. Yeah, well, you've got me on the nose already. That's glorious. Oh, it's really soft, and that's, for me, that's always with Pinot Noir. The moment it feels nice and soft and velvety, I know I'm onto a good thing. Is it the style of the Pinot Noir that you make? Do you feel there is a distinctive Stellenbosch style, or even a distinctive Clarise style of Pinot Noir that you're aiming for?
For me, it's just I don't like over oaking things, so that's exactly what we did here as well. And I'd like to, for Pinot Noir, especially concentrate on the fruit and on the primary flavors. I think that's something for me stylistically. It's exactly what I'm going for. So that's what I tried to do, and I think we achieved what we wanted to achieve. I mean, the wine is fresh. It's really aging well. And I think it's still got quite a few years to go. You can still leave it, although it's drinking perfectly now. It's very, very soft. You get a lot of mineral characters to it. There's a lot of red fruit, raspberry, red plum. There's some mushrooms coming through. And it's definitely got enough legs to go for at least like 5 to 10 years.
Which is in place, because we don't always think of Pinot Noir, I think, as being a wine that we age as much as we might others. It can be drunk so quickly and so early. So it's nice to have a winemaker who's got a Pinot Noir that you really do want to give a bit more time to.
I would like to, although wines do not tend to last in our house. So we always buy wine with the intention of keeping it for later. But I mean, tomorrow we couldn't be there. Maybe we're not here anymore tomorrow. So we tend to drink everything.
We had Skulk Berger, the rugby player, junior, on the show a few weeks back, and he gave me a great quote, as he so often does. A full bottle doesn't tell a story, but an empty one always will. And I think that's a great mantra with which to approach wine. Before our last question off to you, Clarise, I can tell you Michelle is tuned in. Exciting times, she says. They certainly are, Michelle, for your kitchen as well as for Clarice's wine and Hazendal as a whole. Skulk Stapelberg suggesting the chenin will age wonderfully. I've got no doubt it will, Skulk, just not this particular bottle. It's got a lifespan of about an hour and a half, I reckon, once this show is done. And then Peter Ferrara saying, hello, Mr. Bubbles. I need to get in touch with you, Peter. What's your phone? I'll drop you a message later. We need to get you on the show and drink some Cab Classique. Last time Peter and I drank wine together was in London, actually, at High Timber with Nylene. And I then went off and watched some cricket with Morne Morkel and Dean Elgar and watched South Africa get hammered. So we need some better memories there, Mr. Ferreira. Clarice, before we let you head off and welcome in Danielle from Guardian Peak, quickly, Hazendal as a whole, you've got the distillery, you've got the wine, you've got the restaurants. What's open at the moment? Can people come and visit you? What's the state of play at the estate?
At the moment, farm's closed for visitors. We have decided that that's the safer approach to take. Although we are doing online sales, So all of the wines are available online, and we are also currently running a 10% discount on all of the wines. So yeah, please do take a look at that, and we deliver anywhere in South Africa and even abroad.
All right. Well, if you are looking at a delivery, I can recommend both of the wines today. If you're a chenin fan, this beautifully rich and creamy example. And then if you've always thought, Stellenbosch, Pinot Noir, I'm not so sure, I think this might just be the wine that changes your mind. Clarise, I can this time say I have tasted and thoroughly enjoyed your wines, and say so honestly as opposed to last time when you rightly called me out. But I look forward to the next time being with you in person over some of Michelle's fantastic food and enjoying the rejuvenation and the new lease of life that you were a big part of down at Hazendal.
Great, fantastic. It would be great to see you, yeah.
Thank you so much. Clarise Sciocatti-Langeveldt. It's a wonderful name for a wonderful winemaker down at Hazendal, joining us from Stellenbosch. Peter Ferrara, yes, he wants to do a Cup Classique masterclass. Fantastic. So look out for that with the great Bubbles Ferrara. And that'll be in the next couple of weeks. We'll keep you posted. So that is to look forward to a few weeks down the line, to look forward to right now. Another part of Stellenbosch that I love, because I've spent many hours drinking wine, but also enjoying the restaurant, enjoying the views, taking in the sweeping vista of Stellenbosch from either the deck or the restaurant just inside. It's an incredibly special place to go and visit. Generally, Stellenbosch is beautiful. When somewhere in Stellenbosch is particularly beautiful, you know that it is a real treat. So let's head over to Guardian Peak and say hello to Danielle le Roux. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for inviting me. It's lovely to be on your show. We've talked a lot about the Stellenbosch weather and lots of rain and wind. I was planning to have a beautiful view for you outside, but unfortunately, you're stuck with me in the office. So, but you haven't told us your weather. How's things on your side?
Yeah, I am absolutely frozen, which is probably appropriate because Monday was my daughter's birthday and we watched Frozen 3 times. So that was probably the harbinger of cold weather. Cold weather meaning that we need some nice red wine to warm us up. Although, as we said with Clarise, white wine can also do that job. We're going to drink some in just a moment. But before we do that, Guardian Peak, I've been there many times. I had lunch there last year with Michael Jordan, his wife Rose. Michael, a director of Dan Really Likes Wine, which mainly means that he just meets up with me once a quarter to drink wine. And I've had a birthday party there and many, many great times. It's a really, really cool place to come and visit. For people who haven't been there, who don't know it, explain how Guardian Peak fits into the broader family of the Ruston Freire group, so to speak. And then Guardian Peak itself. Is it an actual peak? Where does that name come from? What's that history?
Yes, so of course, yeah, so we're the sister company of Ruston Freire, and John Engelbrecht is the owner of Ruston Freire. And basically in 1994, when the whole South Africa opened up for business, John went abroad to market his Ruston Freire brand. And then he was quite focused on the American market at the time. And they required basically a broader brand than Ruston Freire, or broader flavor spectrum. So wines that was a little bit more accessible, a little bit more suited to a more modern kind of palate and consumer. So, and then also, of course, the Afrikaans name Ruston Freire is very traditional, but it's also quite difficult to pronounce. So they really asked for a brand also that could be easily pronounced. So and that's how Guardian Peak started. So John just started looking around for a spot, and just down the road from Ruston Freire, also on the Annandale Road, there's a beautiful valley. It's also the Annandale on the Annandale Road, and it's quite magical. It's being overlooked by these 2 huge mountain ranges, and also the highest peak on the Stellenbosch mountain is called Guardian Peak. So, and in Afrikaans, it's called Leeuwkop, basically. So, and it's basically the same as in the old days where you had those lions at the entrances of towns or castles or houses that guarded over the facilities. And that was also the whole idea with the lion head, or the Guardian Peak of the Stellenbosch mountain. And that's also why our logo is also, like you can see, line since all time. And yeah, right in the beginning, we rented cellar space facilities in other places, and we bought in fruit. But since then, we've started having longer contracts with the fruit growers, and thereby also having a lot more input into the fruit that we receive, and that also suits the style of Guardian Peak. So that's basically how Guardian Peak came about.
I'm looking at that bottle, the same one that you've just picked up, and seeing all of the imagery. What I'm also seeing is what you flipped over, so we could see the Guardian Peak label a little more clearly, and that's this here. And that is very appealing to me, Danielle. Something that says "Win wine for a year." My question would be twofold. Firstly, how much is wine for a year? How much wine is that? And then how does one go about winning wine for a year?
Well, I guess palates differ also, and consumption rates differ, but we worked it out and we thought, I think it basically works out at 150 bottles, so it's quite a lot of wine. But I think for one person that should be enough to consume for the year. But yeah, it's a fantastic initiative, I think, and you basically just have to go online, post a photo of yourself, tag us, and just have the hashtag WinWineGP, and you could be the winner. So it's I'm not allowed to enter this, so it's a bit of a pity. So, but
sure,
yeah,
150 bottles.
Hopefully you can.
I think 150 bottles is almost Jean Engelbrecht's wine for a year. I mean, that is a lot of wine, and it's Guardian Peak wine. And what I've always enjoyed, and we're about to trust me.
Exactly.
What I've always enjoyed about Guardian Peak wine is, yes, Rust and Freda is a world-class label. I've had many bottles of it over the years, but it's not inexpensive. And for a lot of people, it's a difficult one to be able to purchase. It's a real treat, particularly when you look at the higher-end stuff. Whereas when I drink Guardian Peak, there's not a massive climb down in quality by any means, but the price, in fact, if I look at this particular Merlot that we're about to drink, I was looking at this at Pick and Pay earlier this week. I think this was 90 Rand a bottle, which for a really good bottle of South African Merlot is a great price. And once you've had the quality, the price becomes even more amenable.
Yes, and I think that's also part of why I really like the Guardian Peak brand. I just think our motto and our philosophy here at Guardian Peak is basically live with wine, and also that food and wine is inseparable, but also that wine should be part of our lifestyle. So, and I also think that's the great appeal of our Guardian Peak wines. I think at that price level, it really can be part of your lifestyle, and you can actually have a bottle every day. So I think that's quite an important factor also if you want wine to be part of your lifestyle every day.
I'll remind you of how you win that competition again at the end of the show, but let's try some wine, not before saying a quick hello to Mark Taylor, who says, "Hi Dan, great show." Thank you, Mark. It's all down to my guests. And then Peter Ferrara, lovely spot. The view's great, and Danielle is doing a great job. And he follows this up by working out exactly how much wine this is, Danielle. 150 bottles, according to Peter Ferrara, is enough for half a year. I know Peter Ferrara. I think it's enough for about a month and a half, if you are Mr. Bubbles.
It depends on the person.
All right, let's try some of this Merlot. So this is the 2019, so it's still a fairly young wine, but I suspect it's going to be more than drinkable, both because Merlot as a grape tends to become approachable a little earlier than some others, but also because the winemaker in question's got a bit of flair for Merlot, a bit of passion for this particular grape, Danielle.
I do, Dan. I'm a sucker for Merlot, actually, and I just find Merlot to be quite interesting in terms. It's quite challenging to make, of course, because you can really you can mess it up quite easily. And I know Pinot Noir is the heartbreak grape, but Merlot can also ditch you if you don't take care. But it can make so many different styles. Of course, from the cooler climate, you get that red fruit and fresher kind of characters and herb characters. And then in the warmer areas, more that chocolatey kind of black fruit wines. But it's really interesting and complex. And yeah, I just also love the whole story about Merlot. Also, you know, where the name originated from is of course the French word merlet, which Brendan will kill me for saying that French in that accent, but anyway, and it means little black bird. And it's so apt for me also because if you look at that little blue-black berries, the bird is the same color as the grapes, and also the bird loved that grapes, and that's where that word originated from. And yeah, so I also think, and what people don't know is one of the most expensive wines in the world actually is made from Merlot, Chateau Petrus. So, and people in South Africa love Merlot usually because they, it's the cultivar that's been consumed, the red wine cultivar consumed the most in South Africa. So there's a market for Merlot, and I think South African people love Merlot. And now I should shut up now. I'm talking too much about Merlot.
No, not at all, not at all. Although I will question you on one. You claim that Merlot comes from the French Merlet, whereas my understanding is that former Springbok rugby player Rob Lowe's great-grandmother, Elise, made the first Merlot, and so it was known as Mevrouw Merlot, which became Merlot, and that's where the name came from. So that's my theory, and I'm going to stick to it. Either way, lovely wine, and I see Michelle Smith from Big Bay Commentating, one of the best value Merlots. Certainly is, just 90 Rand for this. Picking up on it, I know you say on the label it's got some plum and some fig and some vanilla. That fig immediately gets triggered the moment you drink it. So a great introduction today to the Guardian Peak Wines. Before we go on to some vintage stuff, which I'm also quite excited about, you're part of the Merlot Forum, which sounds like a very cool organization that I should definitely be part of. What is the Merlot Forum? What do you do? Do you have weekly meetings and get-togethers? How does the Merlot Forum operate?
Yes, of course, at the moment it's a little bit quiet with COVID-19, but it's the same as, for example, the Cab Association or the Chenin. So we're just doing the same for Merlot. We're trying to put a platform out there for people to learn more about Merlot, to up the quality of their Merlot, also to be introduced to more international styles, to bench yourself against natural overseas styles. So we usually have a big conference once a year, and then also coming up this month, which is quite interesting, will be the Wine Mag as Merlot report, and many people from the area and from South Africa will enter, and we'll just have a nice feedback session about the quality of Merlot and also which ones features, and also just to bench each other also against, so it's a very great initiative. But I don't know if I told you about the Merlot. Is coming from 3 different regions. It's from the Bredekloof area. It's a little bit high elevation vineyard, 600 meters above sea level. Those lovely plums. I always find I'm looking for that ripe plums. And then also from the Elgin area, some grapes, and Stellenbosch, and also a little bit from Pinot. So we source these grapes. We have great input into the vineyards as well. So and they all add a little bit of interest and nuance to the wine. So I think it's quite plush and velvety, but it's also quite an interesting nose and aromas. So
it is also 90 Rand a bottle. This is a triumph, Danielle. You should be enormously proud of this wine. And you got a lot of fans here. Skulk Stapelberg, I love it. Merlot with a good steak, particularly this one. Amanda de Klerk, she's such a passionate winemaker, Danielle. You got a big fan there in Amanda. And Elna Jacobs, that sweetest first sip of my beloved Guardian Peak once the alcohol ban was lifted. Creating many great memories. Memories of 2005. What would you have been doing in 2005, Danielle?
Yeah, I don't want to give away my age now, but I've been making wine then already, and I was. What I remember from the vintage, there was quite a big heat wave basically in January, and then that cool spell kind of just before when we started harvesting, some rain. So they delayed the vintage, but also then, after rain, usually it speeds up quite a lot. So quite a lot of frantic intaking for some time. But I don't know if you tasted the wine, Dan, but I think this wine really held up very well. And the SMG also has quite a nice story. Also, as John traveled around, he and also the winemaker at the time was Louis Strydom, and they both really loved the Southern Rhone style of wine. So that's how it all came about. And of course, at the time also, I think Australia was making more with a dominant Grenache, so Grenache, Syrah Mourvèdre. But they felt that the Shiraz really shined here, and that it was a little bit more restrained and low in alcohol. So that's why they decided to let the Shiraz lead the blend. And also interesting, it was also, I think, also the first wine in South Africa with like literally the initials SMG on the label. So SMG is quite a special wine for us. It's been made since 2000. So it's it's come to age.
Well, there we go. You will have picked up, I'm sure, there, if you hadn't already known, that SMG stands for Syrah Mourvèdre Grenache, although in the case of Guardian Peak, it also stands for Seriously Magnificent Grapes, which are put together to form this particular wine. It's 15 years old now, and I love trying older wine and seeing where it is. This was the year, I did some research earlier, 2005 was the year when Tom Cruise was famously jumping up and down on Oprah Winfrey's couch. And it was the year of the first Airbus A380. And it was the year Greece won the Eurovision Song Contest for very important cultural landmarks. And also the year this particular wine came into being. And I'm about to give it my first crack. So here we go. Oh. So in the space of the last 24 hours, Danielle, and this is all purely research, the stuff I do for all of my viewers, my commitment is peerless. I've tried some 2005 Luddite Shiraz, which I had for dinner last night, and also with the use of my new Coravan, which is changing my life, took a sample of some 2000 Shiraz from Merlot. And this is the third wine in the space of 24 hours at 15 to 20 years old, where I drink it and I'm blown away primarily by the freshness. There is nothing to this wine that says to me it should be 15 years old. It just feels so much younger, and that's such a wonderful tribute to everything that went into making it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, you do have that fruit cake and that allspice character, but it's still beautiful texture, quite intact. The acidity is still there, some beautiful round tannins. So I also think this wine, I was very impressed with the vintage. And like I said, we're still making the same brand, but now just more in the modern packaging. Well, that's it. So that's the one. The current vintage is 16.
And if I were to drink that right now, what would the major difference be in terms of the 05 and the 16, which I think is what you have there?
Well, the 16, I think, changed a little bit in terms of the Grenache was also now fermented in open top fermenters and with some more stems. So I think we're really trying also to bring in that fresher component. The Grenache is slightly lower bulling harvested with some stems and very, very light oaking. So I think we just, in terms of how it went modern, I would just say slightly more lighter, slightly lower sugar harvested, and but the wine is beautiful. So you should try both.
I certainly will. But this 05 is going to take pride of place for the next little while, doing battle with our wine from Hazendal a little earlier on today. Before we wrap up, the Guardian Peak space, as I mentioned earlier, is just so beautiful to spend time at. If people are down in the Cape, if they're able to travel around, is the restaurant open? Can people come and taste? Can they come and pay you a visit and buy some wine from you?
Yes, it's definitely open for lunch every day, basically at the moment, and then for dinner only from Thursdays to Saturdays for dinner open. And we're still running also a lovely discount also on the wine on internet sales, 20%. So there's lots to look forward to, and we're really here to welcome everybody that wants to visit. And I just want to have one more suggestion. When I saw you tasting that chenin and Pinot Noir, can't we taste next time maybe taste the wines of the other guests as well? That would be great.
Oh, I shall send a note round to Hazendal and tell them to have some wine delivered to you first thing in the morning. And we do, of course, wanted to taste some more wine from the broader family, because as well as the wine of Rust and Freda, there's the Donkeys Bio range. We've tried some of the Stellenbosch with Jean. So we'll be seeing more of your greater winemaking community in the next little while, I'm sure. A reminder, the competition, there you go. It is win wine for a year. Very simple. Nip down to Pick and Pay, buy yourself a bottle of wine, 90 Rand for this Merlot. Go and buy all of it. Buy all of it. Really do. Forget sending your kids to university. Buy wine. Far more important, but that's such a great price. It's such a lovely wine. Just take a photo yourself with your bottle and send it through to at Guardian Peak Wines, hashtag WinWineGP, and there is a great way to win wine for you. It's about 150 bottles. So for some people, that's 10 years worth of wine. If you are Peter Ferrara, it's about a week, but it's going to be a great collection either way. Danielle, thank you so much. Keep championing Merlot as you do fantastically, and a big thank you for talking us through the wine. I will give you a couple of final shout outs before we go. Amanda de Klerk saying the SMG, one of her favorites since the first release by the then winemaker Louis Stradham, who of course is now running the show down at Annie Else and doing such a terrific job. And then Michelle Smith, who speaks from a position of complete objectivity, saying go to Pick and Pay and buy lots and lots of wine. Michelle, you're a wise woman. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to thank you again soon, and hopefully it's together over a very large glass of Merlot.
Thanks for having me. Bye. Stay well.
There we go. Danielle le Roux, the winemaker extraordinaire at Guardian Peak, wrapping us up for this cold Thursday here in Johannesburg, and preceded by Clarise Sciocatti-Langeveldt down at Hazendal, the Pinot Noir and the Chenin Blanc that we had with her a little earlier, an estate that's in a time of transition but moving into some incredibly exciting times. So what to look forward to next week? On Monday evening, we're heading to Franschhoek. It's Bastille Day next week, so we want to be celebrating our French Huguenot corner of South Africa, be catching up with Carla Malherbe from Rupert and Rothschild, and also talking to Hein Kuchlenberg from La Motte as we try wines from two of the great estates of the Franschhoek area. And through the course of the week, more wine excitement as well. Remember, if you are not already, join that Pick and Pay Wine Club absolutely free of charge. You get 3 times the Smart Shopper points, and you get access to a huge range of wine at some really great prices. And some of those wines in particular each month changing, but really good deals, but only if you remember. Free to do it. No reason not to. Thanks for all your support. Keep drinking and supporting South African wine. Thank you again to Reach for a Dream for my very cool slippers, which I'll be popping on in just a moment, and sitting beside the fire and finishing off my evening with a little more Guardian Peak and a little more Hazendal. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for sharing. We'll see you again next week. Cheers.